Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP recounts his 8-year marriage, highlighting early happiness and challenges, especially around finances and work stress. During his wife's pregnancy, she was misled by her sister into believing he was cheating. Later, he discovered his wife was having an affair, leading to their divorce. He now has full custody of their son, but ensures his ex-wife remains involved in their child's life. Now let's get into the story. My wife and I have been together for 8 years, and they were some of the happiest of my life. Things are complicated now, but I knew that I loved her from the moment I met her. She was a sweet, smart girl, and she was pretty much everything I wanted. We got married after only dating each other for about 6 months. Everybody told us that it was way too soon, but neither of us cared to listen. We knew that we wanted to be together, so we went to the courthouse and signed the papers. I know it's not the most romantic of stories, but it's what we both wanted at the time. When we first got together, one of the biggest arguments we would have would be about money. Neither of us had really good jobs at the time, and things were tight. We pulled all of our money together, and then we would argue about what we would spend it on, whether that be buying something for the house or saving to buy our own home. A couple of years ago, I got an incredible promotion at work, and things took a turn for us. We had more money than we ever thought we would, and we decided to start a family. So we put a down payment on a house, and once everything was set up there, we started trying to have a baby. It didn't take long for us to get pregnant, and everything seemed to be going well. About 6 months into my wife's pregnancy, I was very overwhelmed with everything. I was going to be a father, and I would have a whole life depending on me for 18 years. It was a lot to take in, and honestly, I could have handled it better. I was scared, and I threw myself into work to try to avoid that feeling. I didn't take my wife's feelings into consideration at all. Just wanted to forget about my worries. What I didn't know was happening at the time was that my wife was talking to her sister a lot about our relationship. Apparently, the distance that had been growing between us was alarming her, and she thought something was going on. Most people would try to calm her down and tell her that her hormones were clouding her judgment, but not my sister-in-law. She actually convinced my wife that I was cheating. My wife never came to me about it either. Both of them just assumed that I was cheating and carried on with their lives thinking that was the case. I had never been interested in having an affair with anyone. Yes, there have been times when I've looked at another woman since I've been with my wife, but I've never once considered cheating. Throughout the rest of the pregnancy, I didn't even notice that anything was off. The baby came, and both of us were completely obsessed with him. It changed our personalities and demeanor quite a bit. Unfortunately, when I was working a lot more during pregnancy, I set a standard for myself that I had to upkeep after the baby was born. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him, which was hard to deal with. I took 3 weeks off right after the baby was born, but after that, it was back to normal for me at work. Once again, my wife thought that I was cheating on her, and once again, she didn't come to me with these concerns. I started to notice that there was something off in the relationship about 8 months after our son was born. It was around the holidays, and thankfully my job gave us an entire week off with Christmas and New Year. I was really looking forward to the time off to spend with my family and celebrate my son's first Christmas. With the time at home, I noticed that my wife was very distant. I finally had the time to relax and be with her, but she didn't even seem to want me to touch her. On top of that, she was being very sneaky about her phone. I kind of thought that she was doing something Christmas-related and didn't want me to see it because it was supposed to be a surprise. But after Christmas came and went, and she was still doing it, I started to get a little worried. One afternoon, she passed out on the couch after she put our son down for a nap, and I took advantage of the opportunity to see what she was being so sneaky about. I grabbed her phone and looked through it to see what was going on. I felt like I had been punched in the gut when I realized she was having an affair. At the time, I didn't know that she thought I was cheating. I thought that everything in our relationship was fine. I found countless messages from some random man where they were sexting and exchanging nude photos. The man was very clearly fetishizing my wife's postpartum body. This is kind of gross, but he was very interested in her breasts, if you get what I mean with that. I felt like my entire world was shattering around me. I just had a baby with this woman, and she was cheating on me. It was absolutely horrifying to learn. I gathered as much evidence for her phone as I could, including every bit of detail I could find about the man she was talking to. It was obvious from the messages that he knew about me. He had an affair with a woman that he knew was married and just had a baby. It was all very disgusting. I put the phone back where it was and pretended like everything was normal while I looked into the man. It didn't take too long for me to find him. I did an image search of him, and I found a Reddit account where he posted a lot of pictures of himself. On top of that, he was in a lot of pervy subreddits about pregnancy and women who have just given birth. Through his account, that's where I found out he met my wife. Her post was pretty harmless. It was in a safe for work pregnancy community where she posted a picture comparing her belly before pregnancy and at different stages. Most of the comments were from other women and were very uplifting, telling her it was natural and beautiful, etc. But that's where I saw this man's comment. He mentioned that a pregnant belly was the most beautiful and attractive thing to a man. She thanked him, and I guess from there they started talking. I was also able to discover that the man was married. He was older than my wife, and he had a family of his own. From what I could find on the internet, it looked like his family was grown and out of the house. From their messages, I wasn't sure if they had actually slept together yet, but it didn't matter. If she was having these conversations with another man and sending him these pictures, it was cheating. I tried to figure out what to do to move forward with everything. Part of me considered talking to my wife about it and finding a way to move on, but I didn't think I would be able to do anything like that. I ended up finding the man's wife on Facebook and sending her a friend request. She accepted it not long after, and I sent her a message detailing everything I had discovered, attaching some of the pictures and screenshots that I had of their conversations. She didn't respond to the messages, but she did read them. A few days passed, and I noticed some behavior changes with my wife. She wasn't looking at her phone as often, and she seemed to be more interested in me. I couldn't help but think that it was because the man she was talking to had stopped contacting her. Everything was eating away at me, so one night I just confronted her about it. I told her that I was waiting for her to come clean, but she didn't. We got into a huge argument about everything, and I asked her why she was doing that. She framed the entire situation as her getting revenge on me for cheating. Again, at the time, I didn't know she and her sister had suspected me of anything, so I was taken aback by the accusation. I shut it down right away, and she insisted that I was up to something. I told her that I genuinely wasn't cheating, and I detailed everything that I did during the days when I was working. I could see that she felt bad for assuming that I was cheating on her and acting out in revenge. She apologized profusely, but it was a lie. It was too little too late. She had behaved extremely immaturely, and her actions had consequences. I told her that I couldn't be with her, and I told her that I would be filing for divorce. She was heartbroken, and she begged me not to, but I didn't have a choice. She broke my trust, and I didn't want anything to do with her. She left the house to go stay with her sister, and I got started on the paperwork. Her sister contacted me a couple of days after she left and tried to explain everything, taking a lot of the blame for herself. I sent her a message telling her that in the future, she should consider not meddling in things that were on her business. I was looking through Facebook one day out of curiosity, and I saw that the woman I contacted about the messages posted a long message announcing her divorce. In the message, she mentioned how they were together for 25 years, and it was a very difficult decision, but she found out that her husband was carrying on several online affairs and had cheated in person countless times. I felt bad because I thought I was the one to break this news to her, but then again, it was best that she knew. I ended up getting divorced from my wife, and now I have full custody of our son because I'm the one with a full-time job. My wife is living with her sister and comes to visit our son often. Despite everything that happened, I want her to be a part of his life, and I'm not going to keep them from each other. Today's second story. In this story, OP met his girlfriend in college, and they dated for years. After her sister's death, she started an affair with her sister's husband, Joe. The man discovered the affair, confronted them, and exposed it to her family. He then cut ties, moved out, and started over, feeling betrayed and having lost time with the wrong person. Now let's get into the story. I, 26 male, and my girlfriend, 27 female, met each other in college when we were in the same calculus class. She was smart, and I used that as an excuse to ask her for help with some of the work. I was an engineering major and understood math much better than she did. We flirted a lot and eventually started going out. We were together all 4 years of undergrad, and we lived together while we both attended separate grad schools in the city. I couldn't imagine a life without her. I had been with her for so long and saw so much of my future with her in it. I wanted to propose, but I wanted to do it when both of us were stable in our careers and truly ready for that step. Her family lived in Texas, and we lived in New York, so she didn't get to see them often. I met them a few times, but didn't know them very well. She had a great relationship with them all, and they talked often. I knew that she missed them more than anything, but she was happy living in the city. One evening out of the blue, we got a phone call from her mother. Her sister was in a car accident and was in the ICU. She immediately packed a bag and bought the next plane ticket she could go see her. I wanted to go with her, but we decided it would be best for me to stay behind for a day to let her work and schedule someone to care for our dog. I did just that while she went ahead of me. While she was on the plane ride home, her mother called me and told me her sister passed away. I was heartbroken that I couldn't be there with her when she got the news. Her sister was one of her best friends. They were called twins because they were so similar. My girlfriend was 2 years younger than her, but they looked identical and they sounded exactly the same. When she landed in Texas, her trip switched from visiting her injured sister to helping plan a funeral. I stayed behind longer than I expected at her suggestion. She didn't want me to leave work until they had a date planned for the funeral. We couldn't afford to spend a lot on dog boarding or a dog's consider, so the shorter my time in Texas, the better. I called her often to check in on her while she was away. As the time went on, it sounded like she was getting better. There were some times when she didn't answer, so I texted to check in on her. She would call me back later those nights and tell me that she had been at her sister's house going through some of her things. Her sister was married to a guy we'll call Joe. He was nice the few times I met him, but he seemed superficial to me. He wanted a big house, nice cars, and a hot wife. So that's exactly what he got in life. I always thought he wanted to marry my wife's sister because she would be the perfect trophy wife. I knew that spending time at her sister's house would mean spending time with him, but she was mourning. It never crossed my mind that they would start sleeping together. Eventually, I flew down for the funeral and finally got to be with my girlfriend again. I missed her, and I felt terrible that I wasn't able to be with her while she was grieving. During the wake, Joe struck up a conversation with me and mentioned how sometimes he'd look at my girlfriend and see her sister. Then his eyes lingered on her much longer than I felt comfortable. I didn't say anything because he just lost his wife and everything. Afterward, he kept mentioning how hard it was on my girlfriend and how I wasn't there. It seemed like he was trying to guilt trip me. My girlfriend and I flew back to the city a couple of days after the funeral and started trying to get things back to normal. My girlfriend was still grieving and a lot of things upset her. I just tried to be there for her. The only problem was that she wouldn't let me help her. Whenever I tried to comfort her, she would turn it down. When I tried to hold her at night, she turned away from me. She didn't even want to hold my hand. I thought all of that was her grieving and shutting me out for it. One day, I came home from work and found her in our bedroom trying on some clothes she brought back from Texas. They were all her sister's things, stuff that Joe bought for her before she died. I noticed that she was taking a lot of pictures in the clothes too. A few weeks later, she told me that Joe was coming to visit and would be crashing with us. He needed to get out of their house and he had never been to New York, so she invited him. I felt bad being upset about it, but I was still annoyed with how he was looking at her during his wife's wake, and on top of that, nobody asked me if it was okay. Still, I didn't say anything because it was such a sensitive issue. My girlfriend was talking to him a lot leading up to his arrival. I would come home from work and see them FaceTime each other, talking about different places they were going to go when he was there. He called all the time, and they texted a lot too. They hadn't been that way before the funeral. It was rubbing me the wrong way, but I didn't know what to say to address it. I was aware that no matter what I said, I was going to come across like a jerk because both of them were still mourning. Joe eventually arrived in the city and my girlfriend, and I helped him get settled in her apartment. My girlfriend worked from home, and I worked a few blocks away, so she was going to be alone with him most of the time he was there. My gut was telling me not to trust it. I hadn't seen anything that directly told me there was something going on with them. I just had a feeling that their relationship had changed immensely since the funeral, and it was gnawing at me. I let my imagination run wild thinking of all the conversations they had over text messages or while I wasn't there. My girlfriend looked exactly like her sister. There was no doubt in my mind that Joe would be attracted to her. He probably had always been. One afternoon while I was working, I sent my girlfriend a text message asking her if she wanted me to grab food on my way home. Normally, she would respond to my messages within half an hour. Even if she was in a meeting, she would still be on her phone and texting. That time, however, she didn't respond at all. I was a little bit worried, so I left work a couple of hours early to go home and make sure everything was all right. Before I put the key in the door, I heard some very alarming noises on the other end. It was clear that someone was having intimate in the apartment. As quietly as I could, I put my key in the door and opened it to find my girlfriend wearing one of her sister's dresses and having intimate on the couch with Joe. They saw me and she immediately jumped off of him, quickly putting herself back together to follow me down the hallway. I was done with her as soon as I saw it. I had my suspicions, and they were confirmed for me. Before I could get on the elevator, she slid through the door and started trying to explain herself. I didn't want to listen to her, but I was trapped with her and forced to. She told me that he was there for her when she was grieving, and it just happened the first time. She swore that she wasn't expecting it to happen again while he was visiting. They talked about it, and they both knew it was wrong, but it just happened again. I could tell that she was lying, so I asked to see her phone. She was almost shocked that I asked. I could tell that she wasn't expecting me to fight with her about it. Reluctantly, she handed me her phone. I found the text messages between them, and it confirmed that she was lying. She apologized while I read through it all, but I knew that it wouldn't make a difference. They hooked up for the first time before her sister's funeral. She was at their house helping him look for a funeral dress for her, trying it on herself to see how it would look because they looked so similar. She told me that Joe saw her and something switched in his mind because of how much she looked like his wife. They had intimate for the first time while she was trying on dresses for her sister to be buried in. From there, they developed some very strange bond where he practically pretended that my girlfriend was his dead wife. It was seriously messed up. The more she explained, the more disturbed I was with all of it. By the time we got off the elevator, Joe was catching up to us in the lobby of the apartment complex. It took everything in me not to run to him and attack him. I restrained myself and told my girlfriend that I never wanted to see her again and strongly recommended both of them attend therapy. What they did was beyond troubling. I went to a friend's house and stayed there while I figured out what to do about my living situation. I didn't want to live in the apartment that I walked in and saw that in. While I was thinking about that, I knew I wanted to expose them. They weren't going to make a fool out of me and then continue on with their lives like nothing happened. I figured enough time had passed since her sister's death to tell everyone about how the two closest people in her life had betrayed her after she died. I threw practically her entire family into a group chat without her or Joe and composed a message explaining everything my girlfriend told me. They were outraged when I told them. Many of them didn't even believe what I said. I had people calling me and screaming, telling me I was a liar and making up horrible things. I swore to them that it was the truth. Meanwhile, my girlfriend was blowing up my phone and texting me, asking me if I told her family about her and Joe. I could see that I had accomplished everything I set out to do, so I blocked all of them. It wasn't my problem after that. A few days later, I went back to my apartment to gather my things, and I saw that Joe was still there. He looked like he wanted to kill me. He yelled at me about how he couldn't even go back to his house without worrying that my girlfriend's family was going to hurt him. I didn't care. I just packed my things and left. I haven't spoken to my girlfriend or any of her family members since then. I moved into a new apartment and have started my life over. I feel like I lost a lot of time committing myself to the wrong person, and now I have to start over.